In our earlier program, we introduced you to the scheme of colon classification. We had discussed the facet analysis, the 5 fundamental categories, their rounds and levels of manifestation, and finally, the sequence of facets. Today, we will deal with 2 important aspects of colon classification. One is 3 planes of work associated with practical classification of a document, and the other one is 8-step method of classifying a document.
According to Ranganathan, the design and application of classification scheme involves work in 3 planes: the idea plane, the verbal plane, and the notational plane. Let us try to understand what this is all about.
We will discuss 3 planes one by one. Let us start with the idea plane. At the idea plane, the different components of a subject are analyzed. For instance, consider the title Cataloging of Microforms in Research Libraries in India in 1989. Our work at the idea plane would be to analyze the different components of this title. This requires identification of the basic facet and the other facets attached to it. Now, in this title, the basic facet of the document is not stated clearly. However, by looking into the title, one can judge easily that it belongs to the basic class library science. Therefore, the basic facet is library science. Now, the next step is to identify the other facets and the fundamental categories to which they belong to. The other facets attached to the basic facet are known as isolate ideas. The different isolate ideas of this title are cataloging, which belongs to the fundamental category energy; microforms, which belongs to the fundamental category matter; research libraries is the personality facet; India is the space facet; and finally 1989 is the time facet. This completes our work at the idea plane.
Now, let us see what is verbal plane. The first stage of work in verbal plane is the arrangement of basic facet and isolate ideas in a helpful order. This is done according to the facet formula given for the particular main class which we are dealing with. In the case of our example, the main class is library science, and the facet formula for library science is 2p semicolon m colon e 2p. In the facet formula, you will notice that the arrangement for space isolate and time isolate is not given. However, from our earlier discussion, you know that the space isolate and time isolate come last in the sequence. So, the arrangement would be like this. Library science is the basic class. Research library is the personality facet. Microforms is the matter facet. Cataloging is the energy facet. India is the space facet, and 1989 is the time facet. The next stage of work in verbal plane is the translation of different isolate ideas into standard terms that are given in the schedule of colon classification. Before we proceed, let me show you that in the main class library science, under the matter facet M, which reads seen as foci in P for Generalia bibliography, which means that isolates for the matter facet is to be taken from the personality facet of the main class Generalia bibliography. Let us take isolate by isolate and then translate them into standard terms. Research library is to be replaced by research. Microform is to be replaced by micro. Cataloging remains cataloging. India remains India, and 1989 remains 1989. When isolate ideas are translated into standard terms, they are known as isolate terms. After translating isolate ideas into isolate terms, the arrangement would be like this. Library science is the basic class. Research is the personality facet. Micro is the matter facet. Cataloging is the energy facet. India is the space facet. And 1989 is the time facet. This completes our work at verbal plane.
Finally, we move on to the notational plane. The first stage in the notational plane is to translate the basic class and the other isolate terms into notations. You may ask, what a notation is? Well, notation refers to a set of symbols that are used in a scheme of classification to represent different subjects. In the schedule of colon classification, you will notice that different types of symbols are used. When a variety of symbols is used in a scheme, it is known as mixed notation. Now let us see what are the different types of symbols used in the 6th edition of colon classification. Types of symbols used are Indo-Arabic numerals 1 to 9, their number is 9. Roman alphabets, capital letters A to Z are 26. Roman alphabets, small letters A to Z, excluding I, L and O, are 23. Greek letters, delta and sigma, are 2. Parentheses 2. Punctuation marks as connecting symbols are 6. They are inverted comma, dot, colon, semicolon, comma and hyphen. Then 0 as connecting symbol 1, and finally arrows 2. They are forward arrow and backward arrow. All these symbols have defined ordinal values, according to which they are arranged in a sequence. We will discuss this in detail when we take up filing of class numbers. Now let us come back to our earlier example and try to translate the basic class and the other isolate terms into notations. In the schedule, the notation for the basic class library science is 2. The notation for isolate term research in the schedule is 3-6. Micro is 151. The notation for micro is taken from the main class Generalia bibliography. The notation for cataloging is 5-5. India is 4-4. This is taken from the space isolate table. And finally, the notation for 1989 is N89, which is according to the time isolate table. After transforming the different isolate terms into notations, the next stage in the notational plane is synthesis of notations. The notations are synthesized with the help of connecting symbols specified for each fundamental category. While synthesizing, we must strictly follow the facet formula given for each main class. The facet formula for the main class library science is 2p semicolon m colon e 2p. In the facet formula, you will notice that before the personality facet P, no comma is used as connecting symbol. Thus, after the notation for the main class library science, the notation for the personality facet should be attached directly, that is 2, 3, 6. After this, put a semicolon and then the notation for the matter facet, that is 151. After this, a colon and then the notation for the energy facet, that is 55. After this, put a dot and then the notation for the space isolate, that is 44. And finally, put an inverted comma and then the notation for the time isolate, that is N89. Therefore, the complete class number would be 236 semicolon 151 colon 55 dot 44 inverted comma N89.
You must have noticed that when we were trying to classify a document in 3 different planes, we had to proceed through various stages. If we combine all these stages, the total number of the stages amounts to 8. These 8 stages, according to Ranganathan, are 8 steps of classifying a document. The method involved in classifying a document in 8 steps is known as 8-step method. Let us see what these 8 steps are. Step 0, raw title. Step 1, full title. Step 2, kernel title. Step 3, analyzed title. Step 4, transformed title. Step 5, title in standard terms. Step 6, title in focal numbers. And Step 7, class number. Let us try to understand the 8-step method with the help of some examples. Consider the title, Diseases of the Heart. Step 0 is raw title. It refers to the actual title of the document, which is Diseases of the Heart. Step 1 is full title. At this stage, the raw title is transformed into expressive title by filling up missing terms. So, the raw title is transformed into Diseases of the Heart according to allopathic system of medicine. Step 2 is kernel title. In this step, all the apparatus words like prepositions, conjunctions, and articles are removed from the full title. Only the kernel terms, which are the most important terms, are kept. So, the full title is transformed into Diseases, Heart, Allopathic System of Medicine. Step 3 is analyzed title. In this step, all the kernel terms are identified with the fundamental categories to which they belong. Their rounds and levels of manifestation are also found out. Finally, the respective symbols for each fundamental category is written along with the kernel terms. Diseases, E, which is energy facet. Heart, P, which is personality facet. Allopathic system of medicine, MC, which is main class. Step 4 is transformed title. In this step, all the kernel terms along with their respective symbols are rearranged in a helpful order. This is done according to the facet formula given for each main class. Allopathic system of medicine, main class. Heart, P. Diseases, E. Step 5 is title in standard terms. All the kernel terms are replaced by the standard terms given in the schedule, which means allopathic system of medicine is replaced by medicine. Heart will remain as it is, and diseases will be transformed into disease. Medicine, main class. Heart, P. Disease, E. Step 6 is title in focal numbers. In this step, all the standard terms are replaced by notations given in the schedule for basic class and isolate terms. The notation for medicine is L, and the notation for the personality facet heart is 3-2, and the notation for energy facet disease is 4. Step 7 is class number. In this final step, all the notations are synthesized with the help of connecting symbols. In the case of our example, the notation for personality facet should be directly added with the notation for the main class medicine. As per the facet formula, for the main class medicine is L32. After this, add colon and then the notation for the energy facet disease, that is 4. Therefore, the complete class number would be L32 colon 4. If we scrutinize all the steps carefully, we find that first 4 steps, that is step 0 to step 3, involves analysis of the title. Therefore, they come under idea plane. Step 4 and 5 come under the verbal plane, and step 6 and 7 under the notational plane.
Apart from these 8 steps, one more step could be added, that is step 8, verification. This step is added for the verification of the class number. In this step, the synthesized class number is translated back into natural language to verify its correctness. For the purpose, let us consider the class number of our example, diseases of the heart. The complete class number was L32 colon 4, where L represents main class medicine, 32 represents heart, that is the personality facet, and 4 represents disease, the energy facet. This verifies that our class number is correct. The 8-step method is devised with the objective of providing a framework for the translation of the thought content of a document. In the initial stages, one has to follow this method religiously to gain confidence in classifying documents. However, this need not be followed in its entirety once a student attains sufficient skills in classificatory work.
Let us now sum up what we have learned today. The practical classification of a document passes through 3 planes of work, namely idea plane, verbal plane, and notational plane. At the idea plane, the subject of a document is analyzed into basic facet and isolate ideas. At verbal plane, the isolate ideas are translated into standard terms given in the schedule. Finally, at notational plane, the basic facet and other isolate terms are translated into notations as given in the schedule. These notations are finally synthesized to form a complete class number. Dr. Ranganathan has advocated 8-step method of classifying a document. The 8 steps are: Step 0, raw title; Step 1, full title; Step 2, kernel title; Step 3, analyze title; Step 4, transform title; Step 5, title in standard terms; Step 6, title in focal numbers; Step 7, class number. Step 0 to 3 belongs to idea plane. Step 4 and 5 belongs to verbal plane, and step 6 and 7 belongs to notational plane. Apart from these 8 steps, one more step could be added for the purpose of verification of the title. That is step 8, verification.
So that's all for today. In our next program, we will discuss the devices of colon classification.